Good day everyone, it's Chris here with a recorded or pre-recorded assessment 2 briefing, just so you can have a chance to think about the guidance that I'm providing for you, and having done that, then bring any questions that you have to the next online meeting, which is on the 7th of April. Perhaps you may not get a chance to watch the briefing beforehand, so I've done this so that it's there for you when you want to get to it. So here we go with a detailed look at the requirements for assessment number 2. And first thing to say is that this is a piece of work where you're creating something new from using literature and so on, but it's not just a matter of interpreting the stuff in the modules and topics and then commenting on them. It's using that material plus additional, because the stuff in the modules and topics doesn't exactly cover the question. So you're creating something new from sources and you're building an argument. And so that's a bit of an extension of what you did in assignment 1, and it is different to what you're doing in assignment 3 with the posts and comments and so forth. This is pretty heavily weighted at 50%, and it's got 3,000 words with it. So it's a bit more challenging than assessment number 1, but hopefully the guidance that I'm going to give you in this recording and then in the follow-up meeting on the 7th of April will help you to get on your way with this pretty well. So starting with the basics, due on the 27th of April at just before midnight. Look, as we move on in the session, my flexibility to grant extensions it gets less and less because deadlines to complete marking and then grades start to appear. So just be careful with this, that you're getting organized early and getting onto it, even though these are troubling times. So do try to stay focused and set yourself deadlines to prepare and then write and edit and then submit this second assessment. So 3,000 words maximums. You may not need 3,000 words, but certainly no more than 3,000 or 3,000 plus or minus 10%. I tend not to mark beyond 3,000 plus or minus 10% because that word count is quite good for the task that you've got. So if you need more words, then do be aware that I may not mark it all if you go over the 10% margin. Some people do that and they don't seem to care, and they just sort of submit it with 4,000 or 5,000 or whatever it might be. And that's tricky because you do need to sort of have the discipline. So I just have to stop because it's not fair to other people who have done the right thing and kept to the word count. So upload a Word document to EAST, not PDF, 4 pages, so I can add comments, and that's important for this one because I will add comments through the paper, and then a completed marking guide at the end. So this is called a report on contemporary issues, and it does have a contemporary angle to it. It's not sort of just a general thing. And the question is to look at the role that these two objectives, fairness and competitiveness, and you've kind of explored that a bit in Module 1 and certainly Module 2. You're critically evaluating. In other words, you're looking at both sides of the argument for the extent to which these can coexist. Now, sort of underline coexist, because that's the point. It's not, which of these is more important or more relevant. No. The question is, can these sit together? And to what extent can they sit together? And to what extent might they overlap? And to what extent might they clash? So that's why it's called the action words are critically evaluate, because there isn't a clear yes or no kind of answer. There is the need to look at more than one side to the argument, and whenever that happens in a assessment questions or in a situation that you face, the process of thought that you're following is in fact critical evaluation. If you're being sort of balanced, because you are looking at multiple points of view. And more on that coming up. And then, so it's not a sort of abstract general question, because the second dot point says that you need to ground your argument in one and only one of these two contemporary issues, modern slavery and the gig economy, or the gig economy. And really, there isn't a magic to selecting. There's literature on both of these. Both are topical, both are controversial, and so it's really which one appeals to you and which one do you most kind of relate to, because that's a good signal for what will be the most effective of the two issues to focus on. Well, just a few requirements here before I start to unpack what you need to do. So there is a requirement for a minimum of 15 credible sources, and the textbook would be one. Some of the literature in the modules 1 and 2, which is the sort of relevant modules for this question, those are also good sources, and then some more. And you need to go beyond the modules and textbook, because this is a question that focuses on contemporary issues, and those issues aren't discussed, if at all, much at all, if at all, in the modules. So you are sort of stepping outside the modules. Therefore, you do need to do a bit more reading, and you do need to reference your work. APA 7 or APA 6 is fine, and I've got resources on that for you on the Interact 2 site. I've also given you some guidance on the format for the report, as you can see here, with title page, an executive summary, an introduction, then the body, which of course isn't a heading. It's just that's the sort of main part of the paper, with headings and subheadings and so on, and summary, conclusion, and reference list. I do want to just make this point about the executive summary and the introduction. People confuse these two, or just assume they're the same. They're not. The executive summary, like an executive summary to any report that you might see, is a summary of the whole thing. So, the idea being that the reader should be able to read that summary and get a sense of the whole argument and conclusion, whereas the introduction is really the signal of the purpose, an outline of the structure, and that's pretty much it. So it's the introduction is like some signposts of what you're going to talk about, why it's an important issue, so on. And then, first I'm going to cover this, then I'll be talking about that, then I'll be talking about that. So that's different to the executive summary. We can talk more about that at the meeting if you wish. Now, so I would say about a page for the exec summary, because it is a summary of the whole report. It's not obviously a rewrite of the whole report, so that takes a bit of skill to work out how to collapse the whole report into a one-page overview. But it's different to an introduction, that's my point. So headings and subheadings are cool, but please don't use appendices, footnotes, endnotes, and so forth. So the body is the body. Anything outside of the body, like in appendices, footnotes, endnotes, if you ignore this and do that, isn't marked. So it's not really useful to do that stuff. And please note, the word count does include all headings and in-text citations, but it does not include, it does not include the title page and the reference list. Now, before you get started on doing stuff, here are 3 things that you need to kind of know where they are or find them so you're ready. So this is like getting organized to do it, and getting some things sorted that you need access to. So the first thing is that you may, just depending, and I recall that, in that one of the surveys I did, several people said they are new or newish, and they would like support with academic writing. So on the I2 site, in that link called Library Referencing and Writing Resources, I've got some videos, or a list of videos, that you should select from to just brush up on academic writing skills. Not all of them, but feel free to sort of choose a few to have a look at, and if they seem helpful, then perhaps look at a few more, if you need to. The second one, and everybody really needs to get into this, is resources on how to find resources, because you do need to find some sources of information for this paper other than the ones that we've provided for you. So again, in the I2 site, under that tab, there are the links to those 2 resources guides for IR that have been prepared for us by the library and which Lauren went through at the last meeting, or just did a quick overview on. Those 2 are helpful as a quick way into places to find resources. The challenge after getting into these, of course, is to select the right sort of search terms, and that is a little bit of trial and error. But the starting point to do that is to really break down the question into its key elements. More on that in a moment. The third thing you need to do to get organized is to find where the referencing guide is. APA 7 or APA 6 is fine. I think I've provided you APA 7, and I have this sitting beside me now because I use it a lot in my writing, and I don't try to commit it all to memory, although a lot of it is in my memory. How to reference sources, again, in that same tab, I've got the document that you need to use. Please use it correctly and carefully, because marks are gained and lost on referencing. So they're easy marks to gain, easy marks to lose if you don't pay attention to this. Okay. The next thing to do just in this getting organized stage is to deconstruct the task. That is to really highlight for yourself the keywords and then the key elements of the question. And I started to do that in that previous slide. And for example, what are the keywords that need to be defined? Because if there are such keywords like fairness and competitiveness, then you ought to define them and substantiate the definitions. And what I suggest people do is to summarize the question in your mind and test that you have got it before you go into finding sources and starting to make your argument. And so that's a good thing to do. So can you kind of close your eyes and state the question and then look back at it, and it kind of matches what your understanding is. See, if you can state the question in your own words, and it matches with the question as I've written it, that's a pretty good indication that you've got it. And then the last thing to do in this getting organized stage is to look at which parts of modules 1 and 2 will you want to use. Now, sure, there is stuff in module 3 for sure that you could use, but don't need to, because this this question is scoped to fit into modules 1 and 2. In fact, module 3 and a little bit of module 4 is picked up in assessment 3, so that's why I'm not touching it on this one. Hey, I wanted to just do this to demonstrate the use of the library resource guide for industrial relations. So here it is, and on the front page there are some dictionaries and encyclopedias, as you can see, just the top of it there. What I did, just to drive this, is to look for some definitions using Oxford Reference Online. And so I thought, well, for sure, you'd need to define fairness. And here's a couple of dictionaries that you could use to extract a definition of fairness. Here's a couple, actually. And you can either paraphrase or direct quote, and make sure you do reference correctly. Same with competitiveness. Again, using that search function for the Oxford Referencing Online. If you download these slides from the Interact 2 site, you'll be able to play this video which shows you how to search encyclopedias on the IR Research Skills Guide, and you can search for keywords, and that way it's a good use of an electronic source, because you can pretty quickly bring up material relating to the issues you want to explore. So even though some of us may not be crash hot fans of online and e-books and stuff, there is this search function and this little video which doesn't have sound. It's just you just need to follow and watch the cursor. Just shows you how to search any electronic source for keywords that you're searching for.